Our story begins on Wednesday the 11th with four teenagers, Ginny, Phil, Sandra, and Tim. They are engrossed in a chilling conversation about the infamous serial killer known as the Blissfield Butcher. This notorious murderer has been terrorizing the town since the 1970s, leaving a trail of unsolved crimes in his wake. They believe it's just a silly little lore. Well, do we have news for them? As the conversation unfolds, Tim and Sandra decide to go inside to grab a bottle of wine. Meanwhile, Ginny and Phil, caught up in the moment, engage in a passionate makeout session. Little do they know that inside Ginny's house lies a mystical dagger called Ladola, holding secrets and power beyond their imagination. With Tim left alone outside, the atmosphere takes a sinister turn. Suddenly, the butcher emerges from the shadows. Seizing the opportunity to strike, he thrusts a wine bottle into Tim's throat, shattering it, causing the jagged shards to pierce through his flesh, immediately killing him. Unaware of the unfolding horror, Sandra becomes the next victim. The butcher violently smashes her head with a toilet seat, leaving no room for escape. Now, the butcher sets his sights on Ginny and Phil, the final two teenagers. With an unhinged determination, he impales Phil's head using a broken tennis racket. Ginny, the last remaining target, finds herself cornered in the living room. The butcher's merciless pursuit leads to her impalement on a rod, sealing her tragic fate. Later, Ginny's parents return home, their joy turning to unimaginable grief as they discover their daughter's lifeless body. To their utter shock, the mystical dagger, Ladola, is nowhere to be found. Thursday the 12th dawns, and we find ourselves in the life of Millie Kessler. Millie lives with her mother, Paula, and her older sister, Charlene, a devoted cop. However, their once close-knit family has been grappling with the aftermath of her father's passing, which occurred a year ago. Her mother seems controlling, and Millie guiltily follows her commands. At school, Millie seeks solace in her friends, Josh and Nyla. Excitement bubbles within their trio as they discuss the highly anticipated upcoming homecoming dance. Despite her reservations, Millie feigns disinterest, insisting that she will spend quality time with her mother instead. We also have our regular mean girl, Ryler, who relishes tormenting Millie at every turn. To compound her troubles, Mr. Bernardi, the woodshop teacher, exacerbates the situation by subjecting Millie to an untimely presentation. Caught off guard, Millie becomes the object of public humiliation in front of the entire class and her secret crush, Booker. As the atmosphere pulsates with tension, an unexpected disruption grips the classroom. News of a series of gruesome murders spreads like wildfire. Later that night, Millie performs as the mascot for the school's football team, the Beavers. The atmosphere is charged with excitement as the game reaches its peak. As the game concludes, Millie eagerly waits for her mother, Paula, to pick her up. Unfortunately, her anticipation turns into disappointment when she calls Paula, only to discover that her irresponsible mother is sprawled out on the couch, completely intoxicated. Thankfully, Charlene is there to save the day and offers to pick her up instead. However, things don't look too good for Millie when she suddenly finds herself face to face with the butcher. Fear grips her as the butcher gives chase, relentlessly pursuing her. The pursuit leads them onto the football field, where the butcher ominously wields a mysterious weapon, Ladola, high above his head. In an inexplicable moment, the very ground beneath them undergoes a strange transformation. The butcher lunges towards her, thrusting Ladola into her shoulder with brutal force. Just as all seems lost, Charlene finally arrives, armed with a firearm. Without hesitation, she opens fire, forcing the butcher to retreat into the shadows. Relieved but deeply shaken, Charlene scoops up her wounded sister and hastily makes their way back home. But something is profoundly amiss. Millie's demeanor has undergone a drastic change, and she no longer resembles the sister Charlene once knew. Friday the 13th, the butcher awakens inside Millie's body, moving bizarrely. To Paula, it appears as a manifestation of the trauma Millie experienced from being stabbed. Meanwhile, Millie herself regains consciousness within the butcher's body near the old mill. Overwhelmed, she panics and desperately seeks help. Unfortunately, the butcher's appearance is widely known due to a recent news sketch, causing anyone Millie encounters to scream and flee in terror. Taking advantage of the situation, the butcher masquerades as Millie and attends school, giving her a captivating makeover that catches everyone's attention. Ryler approaches the butcher and moves to the locker room to get some information about last night's situation. Sensing danger, Millie also arrives at the school, desperately attempting to hide. The butcher, on the other hand, takes Ryler into hiding, ultimately trapping her inside a freezer, where she meets a chilling demise, frozen to death. As Millie continues her search, she discovers Josh and Nyla, who attempt to flee. Cornering them in the kitchen, Millie manages to quell their hostility. To prove her identity as Millie, she performs the Beavers' cheerleading team dance routine. Josh and Nyla, realizing that it is their friend, inquire about personal details that only Millie would know, solidifying their recognition. As Millie mentions the dagger, Josh and Nyla go to seek guidance from Josh's Spanish teacher. They learn that the switch between bodies becomes permanent after 24 hours, leaving them with a mere 9 hours to reverse the transformation and restore Millie to her original form. Later, Millie finds herself in a rather uncomfortable situation in the bathroom. To her dismay, she discovers crude remarks written about her on the stall walls. Just when things seem to escalate further, a student enters, making a derogatory comment. Millie finally utilizes the intimidating presence of the butcher and manages to intimidate the guy. In a different turn of events, the butcher comes face to face with Mr. Bernardi, who resumes being cruel. He is determined to exact revenge from the man. Later on, he finds the teacher alone in the classroom. Taking precautions, the butcher dons a protective coat and glasses, preparing for a gruesome encounter. With a buzzsaw in hand, the butcher engages in a fierce struggle with Bernardi. He drives a screwdriver into Bernardi's neck. The final blow comes as the butcher propels Bernardi's body into the saw, gruesomely splitting him in half. News of the butcher's presence spreads like wildfire, prompting the arrival of the police at the school premises. Their swift response follows reports of sightings, resulting in the cancellation of the homecoming dance. The butcher emerges from the woodshop, catching the attention of Millie, Josh, and Nyla. The butcher immediately alerts the authorities to their presence. Thus, a chase begins between the cops and Millie in the butcher's body. They manage to lose the cops, but their plan becomes difficult when Charlene joins the pursuit. Frantically, they manage to create some distance and find refuge in a nearby mall. Seeking a temporary hiding spot, Josh and Nyla guide Millie into a changing room, concealing her from prying eyes. Meanwhile, they brainstorm a plan to acquire a disguise for Millie. Unbeknownst to them, Paula, who happens to work at the store, approaches the changing room to assist. Unwittingly, she finds herself engaging in a conversation with her very own daughter, Millie. They both share their longing for Millie's absent father. Paula feels a connection with this mysterious man, only to be disheartened when Millie, in order to maintain her cover, claims to be married. Charlene, meanwhile, realizes that Paula is potentially in danger and rushes to retrieve her. Just as the tension mounts, Josh and Nyla make a timely return, equipped with a rubber mask to facilitate Millie's escape. They go to the arcade to find the butcher. In the arcade, the butcher finds himself in the company of a couple of jocks who are grumbling about the cancellation of a dance. Sensing an opportunity, Butcher, disguised as Millie, proposes an alternative plan, heading to the old mill. The butcher also senses Booker's crush on Millie and tries to lure him to his demise. However, Millie and her friends stumble upon the scene, interrupting the butcher's sinister plan. Acting swiftly, they subdue both Booker and the butcher, rendering them unconscious. The group of friends decides to bring Booker and the captured butcher to Josh's house. After a brief period of confusion, Millie manages to convince Booker of her true identity. She does so by reciting a heartfelt poem that she had left for him in his locker several weeks ago. Meanwhile, Josh is in charge of keeping the bound butcher under close watch, ensuring he remains secure, while the others go to retrieve the dagger from the police station. We all know how this will end. At the station, Nyla shares a revelation with a skeptical Charlene. She claims that the notorious butcher has abducted both her and Josh, and he's somehow tracked them to this very location. Intrigued by the gravity of the situation, Charlene ventures outside to investigate, while Nyla continues her search. Meanwhile, Booker engages in a wholesome conversation with Millie inside the car. He confesses that he has harbored a deep crush on her for quite some time. Booker expresses his desire to kiss her, and in a moment of spontaneity, their lips meet. Yet Millie quickly realizes the unsettling truth. She's still in the serial killer's body, so he's basically kissing the butcher and not her. Back at Josh's house, his mother returns to a startling discovery. She finds Millie bound and restrained. Offering to help, she attempts to free her from the binds, but to her horror, the butcher suddenly breaks free and makes a menacing attempt to pursue Josh and his mother. The butcher dashes toward the station, where chaos ensues. In the midst of this chaos, Millie and Booker rush into the station, coincidentally crossing paths with Charlene, who has just re-entered the building, her suspicions now aimed at Nyla. While the events unfold, the butcher seizes the opportunity to steal Charlene's cruiser, further escalating the stakes. Josh has also joined them, and with no time to explain, they secure Charlene in a cell as she tries to attack Millie. Realizing that the old mill serves as the venue for the dance, they hurriedly make their way there. It becomes painfully clear that the butcher's malevolent intentions possibly involve murdering everybody. At the eerie old mill, the scene is set for a gripping dance. Brett, driven by his sinister intentions, endeavors to lure the butcher, whom he thinks is Millie, away to a secluded spot. Accompanied by his cronies, he initiates a heinous act of violation. However, the butcher swiftly takes matters into his own hands, shattering a bottle over one assailant's head and slashing the throat of another. In a shocking turn of events, she seizes a chainsaw and mercilessly strikes Brett's groin. Meanwhile, their friends become aware that time is of the essence. They realize they have a mere 13 minutes before an irreversible transformation takes place. Determined to beat the ticking clock, Booker diligently sets the alarm on Millie's watch, and together they go on a desperate search for the butcher. In the midst of the chaotic pursuit, an aggressive jock boldly advances towards Josh, only to have his advances abruptly halted as the butcher drives a hook into his eye. As the tension escalates, the police arrive on the scene, hot on their trail. Millie is apprehended defeated as she subdues the butcher, momentarily halting their frantic quest. However, with the support from her loyal friends, they unite their forces to overpower the butcher. Triumphantly, they succeed in bringing the formidable figure to his knees. Yet their happiness is short-lived as they are jolted by the piercing sound of an alarm, signaling that they have run out of time. But wait! A glimmer of hope emerges from Booker's earlier revelation. He had mentioned setting his alarm 5 minutes ahead as an incentive. Could this small detail hold the key to their success? A surge of determination floods their hearts as they realize there might still be a chance. In a bold move, Millie plunges Ladola into the butcher's body, hoping to reverse the horrifying transformation and restore normality. And thankfully, she succeeds. The police corner the butcher, determined to put an end to his reign of terror. Without any hesitation, they open fire to stop the butcher once and for all. Millie, relieved to be reunited with her friends, feels an overwhelming sense of gratitude. As Millie gradually recovers from the harrowing ordeal, a moment of tenderness ensues between her and Booker. They lean in, their lips meeting in a long-awaited kiss. Josh and Nyla erupt in joyful cheers, celebrating this triumphant display of love amidst the chaos. Meanwhile, the butcher, his wounds severe, is being rushed away in an ambulance. The paramedics work fervently to stabilize him, but a sudden downturn in his heart rate raises concerns. Returning to her home, Millie seeks solace in the company of her mother and sister. However, tranquility is short-lived as an unsettling noise pierces the silence. To her horror, she discovers that the butcher has somehow survived and launches a vicious attack on the unsuspecting trio. In a desperate bid to defend themselves, Charlene reaches for a gun and aims at the relentless butcher. Yet to her shock, he disarms her, removing the bullets with chilling precision. Paula and Charlene quickly find themselves incapacitated, leaving Millie as the last hope. Cornered and taunted by the butcher, Millie refuses to succumb to his sadistic taunts. With a surge of determination and the knowledge she had gathered while being in his body, she gives a furious kick in the balls. The unexpected move weakens the butcher, providing a crucial opening for her to overpower him. Seizing the opportunity, Millie seizes a shattered table leg, transforming it into a weapon. With one decisive blow, she impales the butcher, finally putting an end to the vile figure.